Welcome back, first grade. Miss Van Wert here. Today we are going to read Tutankhuman, the Golden Pharaoh, Part 2. Our learning objectives are to identify key details about Tutankhuman and the search for his tomb, identify key details about the pharaohs of ancient Egypt, demonstrate an understanding of the word triumph, identify and explain the key components of a civilization, identify key components of the civilizations of Mesopotamia and ancient Egypt. I had a hiccup. All right, our key vocabulary are priceless, sarcophagus, and triumph. Priceless is an adjective, and it means worth more than any amount of money. My grandmother thinks that my artwork is priceless. Okay. Sarcophagus is a noun, and it is a stone coffin, okay? The mummy was placed in a sarcophagus. Triumph. Triumph is also a noun, and triumph is a great success or accomplishment. The band's performance was a triumph, and everyone was pleased. All right, where is the continent of Africa? You guys are probably tired of me asking you that. But where is the continent of Africa? It's the yellow and orange one. Awesome, awesome. And where is Egypt? Remember, Egypt is our country in the northeast corner of Africa. Do you remember where it is? Right there. Okay, so let's review a little bit. What happened with the archaeologist Howard Carter's search for King Tut's tomb? Did he find it yet? We don't really know. We kind of think so. We're not really sure, but I guess we're going to find out in this read aloud, okay? So, who was King Tut? He was an ancient Egyptian pharaoh, right? And who was Howard Carter? He was the archaeologist looking for King Tut's tomb, okay? What was unique about King Tut? Remember, unique means like different. What stood out about him? He became the pharaoh at 9 years old and only ruled for a short time because he died at a pretty young age. He died at age 19. Why was Howard Carter looking for Tut's tomb? Maybe he wanted to be famous. He probably thought there would be lots of treasure. It would have been an amazing archaeological discovery. There's my hiccups again. And he wanted to know more about ancient Egypt, right? So what happened when Carter tried one more time to find King Tut's tomb? He found a stone staircase that he hadn't found before, leading down into the rocky floor of the valley, right? Once his men cleared the steps, Carter found a door with a hieroglyphic seal on it, right? Why do you think nobody really knew exactly what Carter had found? Well, nobody had found something like that before, right? Carter and the team had been searching for King Tut's tomb for years, right? So the last sentence of yesterday's read aloud was, yet none of them was exactly sure what Carter had found. What do you think he found at the end of the last read aloud? What is your prediction? What do you think he found? Remember our key vocabulary. We've got priceless, sarcophagus, and triumph. And I want you to think and listen, or think about what you think Howard Carter found. And then I want you to listen to find out if your prediction was correct. And I want you to listen carefully for those vocabulary words. And I want you to listen carefully to find out more about pharaohs of ancient Egypt, okay? So, here we go. After clearing what turned out to be the last of 16 stairs, Howard Carter and Lord Carnarvon saw carved into the door a few inches lower than Carter had been able to see. Oh my goodness. I'm so confused. I think I skipped a line. Here we go. Let's try this again. After clearing what turned out to be the last of 16 stairs, Howard Carter and Lord Carnarvon saw carved into the door a few inches lower than Carter had been able to see the first time, the royal sign of Pharaoh Tutankhuman. But Carter also saw signs that part of the door had been opened before and then resealed. Who do you think might have opened and resealed the door? Maybe some robbers? We don't know. Maybe we'll find out. After all their work, would they find an empty tomb? What do you think? Will the tomb be empty? What do you think? Let's see if you're right. For days, the crew worked to clear the rock-filled passageway, anxious to move ahead, but afraid of destroying anything important if they moved too fast. 32 feet in, they found another door. This one had also been sealed by Tutankhamun's seal, and more signs that part of it had been broken open. Carter cut another hole, lit a candle, and looked through. The others, fairly dancing with excitement behind him, waited, but he said nothing because, as it turned out, he couldn't speak. He was too overcome. At last, Carnarvon demanded, "Can you see anything?" Howard Carter turned slowly and answered, "Yes, wonderful things." What do you think he saw? What they saw was just a hint of what appeared several days later when they opened that door and entered by the light of electric torches or flashlights. As those torches lit up the room beyond, the light flashed back at the explorers' reflections in gold. There, shining in the torchlight, were a golden throne, a statue of a golden snake, couches made of gold, golden clothing draped over two large black stone statues, and much more. Looking around, Carter and Carnarvon saw ancient Egyptian art pieces of great beauty, some unlike any they had ever seen before. These were priceless, not only for the gold and jewels all over them, but also because they would give new clues to the religious beliefs and way of life of ancient Egyptians. So remember, priceless means worth more than any amount of money. And archaeologists, they work hard to find out about the way people lived in the past by looking at what those people have left behind, right? Then one of Carter's assistants called, "There's another door!" Sure enough, there was another door, smaller room filled with more objects. But unlike those in the first room, these were thrown about as if a robber, feverishly searching through the riches of the place, had been interrupted and left them behind in a hurry. But among all these wonders, something was missing. There was no mummy, nor even a mummy case or sarcophagus. A sarcophagus is a stone coffin, okay? And the mummy is the body of someone who had died, which was wrapped in cloth. The mummy is placed in the sarcophagus. There was a moment of mixed triumph and disappointment. Remember, triumph is a great success or accomplishment, but they still felt kind of disappointed because they couldn't find the mummy, right? But the surprises of that day were not over. As Carnarvon and Carter re-entered the first room, they glanced at the far wall and almost at the same moment shouted, "Look!" For in that wall they saw a fourth door. Why do you think there were so many doors? Maybe to keep the treasure and person buried there safe from outsiders, to show how important the person was by filling so many rooms with so many artifacts? Maybe. Already, they had found the largest, most valuable collection of ancient Egyptian treasures ever discovered. It would take several months before their team could examine everything and gently move it all out. Finally, Howard Carter gently pulled away some stones atop the fourth door and, holding up a light, looked in. At his side, an assistant held up a microphone to carry Carter's words by radio around the world. Here is how Howard Carter later described what he saw behind the door. There, within a yard of the doorway, stretching as far as one could see, stood a solid wall of gold. There was no clue as to its meaning, but with the removal of very few stones, that mystery was solved. We were at the entrance of the actual burial chamber of the king. That which barred our way was the side of an immense golden shrine built to cover and protect the sarcophagus which held the long-lost Pharaoh. So they found him. They had found the burial chamber of Tutankhuman almost 3,300 years after his death. The great cover surrounding his mummy case stood 18 feet wide, 11 feet long, and 9 feet high, all covered in gold. Carved into this were hieroglyphic symbols. The walls of the room were covered with hieroglyphic words and paintings of Tutankhamun and the Egyptian gods. The sarcophagus itself turned out to hold a series of cases, one inside the next, some wood covered in gold. The innermost case, holding the mummy, would become one of the most famous images in the world. It was made of solid gold. Inside it was the king's mummy with a mask over his face, made of gold and shining blue stone. The discovery of King Tut and his treasures excited people all over the world. Wherever the news spread, people said, "We want to know more about ancient Egypt. We want to learn how we are different from those ancient Egyptians and how we might be the same." Nearly hundreds of years later, people are still saying it. All this happened because two men, Howard Carter and Lord Carnarvon, wondered about someone who had lived more than 3,000 years before them, Tutankhamun, Pharaoh of Egypt. All right, guys, what a story. I like that one. It was getting me excited. What do you think? Were you excited? All right, so if you need to take a wiggle break, go ahead and do that and then come back for questions, okay? All right. Were your predictions about what Howard Carter found correct? Did you think he was going to find King Tut? All right. So, what did they find in the tomb? Many objects made of gold, right? Thrones, statues, a couch, King Tut's sarcophagus with the mummy, a wall of gold, sealed doors, all sorts of crazy cool things. How do you think Carter felt when he finally discovered King Tut's tomb? Probably super happy, right? I would be super happy, super excited. I'd be like, "Oh yeah, I finally did it," right? So why was the discovery of King Tut's tomb so important? It's because that's how we know a lot about Egypt, right? It's got so many artifacts that teach us so many different things about ancient Egypt, right? Because remember, there were 4 whole rooms with stuff from ancient Egypt. So you could probably learn a whole lot of stuff. All right. So this read aloud is titled Tutankhamun, the Golden Pharaoh. Is this a good title? I think so, because lots of golden objects were found in that tomb, right? And the wall was covered with gold. And even his sarcophagus was gold. Why is the discovery of King Tut's tomb so important? Because now we're going to be able to learn so much about ancient Egypt, right? We learned so many new things because they found all of those artifacts and all of that stuff in the tomb. And those things told us about the things that happened in ancient Egypt. All right, word work time. In the read aloud you heard, there was a moment of mixed triumph and disappointment when Carter first found objects in King Tut's tomb. Say the word triumph with me. Triumph. Now say it in a whisper voice. Triumph. Now say it like you just had a triumph. Triumph! All right. A triumph is a great success or accomplishment. Reading the book all by myself was a triumph. Have you ever had a triumph? I want you to use that word triumph when you tell me about it. What's the word we've been talking about? Triumph. I'm going to read about an event. If it describes a triumph, say, that is a triumph. If it does not describe a triumph, say, that is not a triumph. Winning a race. That is a triumph. Refusing to do your homework. That's not a triumph. Singing in front of the school. That's a triumph. That would be awesome. Memorizing your favorite poem. That is a triumph. What about forgetting to brush your teeth? That's not a triumph. All right, guys. Let's see. All right. Who remembers what the 5 components of a civilization are? There are 5 of them. So we have farming, leaders, religion, cities, and writing. Okay. Let's see. Uh-oh. Hang on. It's not letting me click this. All right. I'll have to make a separate video for that. So, oh, wait, nope, it's working. I think. It's just taking a minute. Let's watch this. Ready? Here we go.
What are you boys doing over there?
Oh, we're creating civilizations.
How interesting. Tell me about them. Marduk, why don't you go first?
Well, mine is called Mesopotamia. And mine is Egypt, which is like a billion times cooler than Mesopotamia. Is not. Is too. Is not.
Boys, no fighting. Now, Amun-Ra, go ahead and tell me about your civilization.
In Egypt, the people live along the side of a river called the Nile. Here's the Nile now. Whoops. Sometimes it floods.
Well, Mesopotamia has 2 great rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates. Lots of people live along these rivers, and they use it to travel and to trade with one another. The land between these rivers is also great for growing crops. My people grow tons of wheat and barley.
Wheat and barley? What do they use those crops for?
They eat them. There's enough to feed a whole lot of people. Enough to feed whole cities.
I have cities too in Egypt. And also we have leaders. We have to have leaders and rules. The more people, the more you need someone to tell them what to do. Like this Pharaoh. He's a leader to make sure the civilization can keep growing.
Oh, I see.
Mesopotamia has leaders too. We have Hammurabi. He's one of the coolest leaders. He made up a whole code of laws so people would know the right and wrong things to do. And he asked the people to dig canals so they could farm more crops and feed everybody. And also, we have cuneiform. That's a kind of writing, so everybody could keep records of how much cool stuff they have.
No fair! Egypt has writing too. It's called hieroglyphics. And it's a million times better than cuneiform.
Well, Mesopotamian writing was first. We were first at a lot of things. Remember the Code of Hammurabi? Plus, we built ziggurats so people had a place to worship.
Egypt built pyramids and the Sphinx.
More like stinks.
Why, you...
Well, I think both your civilizations are very nice, but I think it's time to go home now. Come on, Amun-Ra. Come on, Marduk. What do you say we pick up some ice cream along the way?
Ice cream? Oh boy! I want honey and emmer wheat on mine.
Ew! Cuneiform carob crunch for me.
That's a silly video, but they talked a lot about the things that we learned, right? Okay. Let's make sure that we have gone over our learning objectives. All right, so we identified key details about Tutankhuman and the search for his tomb. We identified key details about the pharaohs of ancient Egypt. We were able to demonstrate an understanding of the word triumph. We were able to identify and explain the key components of a civilization. And when we were watching that video, we were talking about the key components of the civilizations of Mesopotamia and ancient Egypt, okay? If you want to review those again, you can just rewind my video to that little video, the little cartoon, and watch it again, and maybe see if you can figure out which is their farming, which is their leaders, their writing, their cities, and their religion, okay? All right, guys, awesome job. Bye.